Oh well. And we're
Waiting for the
recording.
stream to go up. Are we? We're recording a black screen right now, unless it's just me. There we go. There's Hyde. Hey, everybody. Welcome to an Unearthly podcast. It's myself, the Man in Black, Mad Matt, and Ron San, and we'll be talking about Hyde. We don't have a theme song ready. We could beatbox it.
Oh God. Bum ba bum bum ba bum bum ba bum bum ba bum ba bum ba bum ba bum ba bum 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 bum.
You know who did that? You know who did that really great? I think it was David Tennant and John Barrowman, was it?
Yes,
They did that. They did that really good together.
they did that. What was that on Weakest Link? I think.
Weakest Link, exactly. Yes. They did that really good. Then again, I guess they hear it often enough.
Probably. Wouldn't doubt one or two of them have it on their cell phone.
Well, everyone, and as usual, you can find this episode on twitch.tv/madmat2185. And, of course, it'll be going up on Fantasy and Sci-Fi Loving Reviews.
And it'll also be going up on YouTube at user MadMat Inc. 1.
There, too. All right, Matt, you want to take us into the synopsis so I don't go all wibbly wobbly timey wimey trying to explain it sideways?
Since I've been hired to do so today, I guess I shall. Okay, so Hyde. We start off at the beginning of this episode with a man and a woman, apparently in the 1970s, trying to investigate ghosts. To which they do get a ghostly image before having knocking at the door, which they seem very leery of. They open the door only to have the doctor jump scare them.
I did give a year. I think it was like 77 or something. It was definitely 70-something, but it was like 77 or something, I think.
Yeah, they mentioned sometime in the 70s. I can't remember exactly what time it was.
And I just watched that scene, too.
So it turns out that the doctor is pretending to be from some government organization, and that the guy who is with the woman investigating ghosts had a past, I guess, in World War II or something. Something along those lines. In one of the more recent wars.
I don't think they state what war, but I don't know what other.
If it's the 70s, it's going to be World War II.
Most likely.
And I think they mentioned U-boats, so that would be WWII.
Right. I don't think they touched Korea or Vietnam, though I could be sorely mistaken.
Not that I was aware of, so it's easily assumed that it's World War II. And there's lots of references back to this guy about his past, to which we come to the point where, eventually in the story, he apparently blames himself for a lot of the younger soldiers getting killed for some reason, but no real particular reason, to be honest, I'm aware of. At least that they gave. But going back, before his whole subplot, the doctor and... why do I keep forgetting her name?
Clara?
Clara. The doctor and Clara are essentially trying to see what these guys are up to, and they're doing this without any really given reason. They just kind of ended up there and went, "Hi, you're investigating ghosts?" Out of the clear blue sky. And they do eventually find out that apparently the house, even before there was a house there, had a long history of seeing ghostly images, and the ghost seems to be always looking towards the camera at the same angle, which is kind of odd. I can name only a couple of other times that something like that happened, usually a holographic image, but kinda, sorta. They continue to investigate around. Clara and the doctor actually bump into some scully creature in the hallway and panic while they were separated from the other two, and come running back as they're trying to contact the ghost again. They manage to get back just in time to see the ghost and some weird spiral thing that's spinning and starts to crack with light. They manage to get pictures of both, I believe. They at least try to get pictures of both. And then both of them promptly disappear as usual. The Doctor finally puts together that there's something obviously going on, and it's been going on for a very long time, to which he has a theory and goes both back in time and forward in time to take pictures of the area, to which he puts a slide together when he gets back, showing that it's apparently a woman who was also time traveling but crash landed and made a pocket dimension. And then they have one single image of the scully creature in which they're like, yeah, not sure what that is. Whatever it is, we're not going to try and talk to it. We're going to run away. And go and try, and they then use the second woman to try and get the crashed time traveler out of there. To which the Doctor does manage to get in. He does manage to find the trapped time traveler and bring her back to the harness to get her pulled out. But the, I guess, dimensional hole, if you will, gets closed on him while he's still trapped in the other dimension. And they also explain that the TARDIS can't go to him, at least not for a very long time, unless the power would all die out, because apparently it can't stand other dimensions, pocket dimensions, that sort of thing. But so he's trapped there, and they try opening up the hole again. To which Clara, after essentially having a few angry words at the TARDIS, manages to get it to go after the Doctor, to which he manages to grab a hold of the outside of the TARDIS and is brought back. After a bit of talking, they find out that the woman was possibly psychically attuned to the time traveler due to possibly being great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother or something to that effect. And then it dawns on the Doctor as they're talking that apparently there's a creature still in the house while there's no one trapped in the other dimension. And then he finally adds two and two together and gets the fact that this one in the dimension is trying to get to the other one because they got accidentally separated by the time crash that must have happened.
Always two there are.
Thank you, Bill. No more, no less. And so he goes back into the pocket dimension to pick up what we guess is the male creature and brings it back, and that's pretty much where it ends.
Oh. So, what did you all think of this episode?
Wasn't overly fantastic, but I enjoyed it.
I think it was alright. I enjoyed the aesthetic. I think some parts of it were a little hard to keep track of where they were going with it, but I think it set a mood fairly well and, followed through on what it was doing.
And I hate to tell you this, Bill, but I think you're dead wrong. I find this to be easily the weakest episode we've had this half season, or this half series. It has the same problem that Neil Cross's earlier episode did. Yes, this is the second episode that Neil Cross, the same person that did Rings of Akaton, did.
I found this to be better than Rings, so...
What's that?
I found this one to actually be better than Rings, so...
I found it to be worse.
One problem they had in common, I think, was trying to do more things than they gave themselves enough time for. Like how Rings had those three guys whose job were to hunt down the Queen of Ages and whatever, and they pretty much could have been completely removed and given more time to other things. Here, there was the whole romance of the alien creatures thing, which really did not have enough time to make sense, but
and actually the alien creatures were part of my problem. Not the fact that they existed, but the fact that the Doctor's like, oh, they're in love. End of story. There's no question of the Doctor going, where did they come from? What are they doing here? I mean, if you look at them, they're obviously not native to Earth, or at least Earth of this time. And
right.
As far as he can tell, they're just in love, so that's the end of the story. So let's bring them back here so they can fall in love and, well, they don't really explain. Maybe those things feed on humans.
And you know what? One thing I did not think about, if they're native to the Pocket universe, if he just brings them back there, that universe only has a few seconds left before it implodes.
Which is the equivalent of several million years of our time.
True, but in their time, he basically is bringing them back so that they can die in a few seconds.
My main problem with this episode is that, yes, while Neil Cross sets it up well, the whole plot of it doesn't work. It's literally riddled with holes. The main one being, of course, the whole pocket dimension concept, which he establishes in the Doctor's, epic technobabble speech in the middle of the episode, that 3 minutes in there is approximately 3 million years of our time. Or longer. They then establish a bridgehead into this universe by use of this gravity well, which I don't have that much problems with, except for a couple of things. And that's the second the Doctor goes into the other universe, everything happens in real time.
Right.
A second in that universe is a second in the main universe. And it doesn't work that way.
And the thing is, I've seen sci-fi stories where they were able to pull off that type of thing. There were definitely, there were consequences, and of course the TARDIS would be really the only way to get around those types of consequences. But yeah.
Actually, now that you mention that is true.
And I could have bought it because they used the TARDIS as the way to get back both times, except that they show the bridgehead portal and the phantom house that forms around it appearing again. What must be about 3-4 minutes later, as Matt Smith has been wandering around this terrain running from the monster. That house would have fallen to dust by then. Because if he had come out of that portal at that time, without using the TARDIS, he basically could have gotten there, said hi to the bouncy trampoline, put on his shades, and watched as the sun expanded and got rid of the Earth. Because the amount of time he spent in there would have been about the equivalent of 4.5 trillion years. So the house, they should not have been able to reestablish the house there. It makes no sense. That's my prime issue with it. There are a few others.
Actually, now that you brought that one up, yeah, I can see that being a little bit of a problem, but it's still only a thing that you only, after mentioning it, I can just go, oh yeah, right, that's right.
I saw it the first time I watched this, when it came out a week ago, at 3 a.m, dead tired, and I'm still going, that doesn't make sense. My second issue is they're establishing so much that the TARDIS would be trapped in that parallel world if it was there for more than 4 seconds. I sat there and counted the amount of time it took Clara to get the TARDIS to pick up the Doctor the first time.
Yeah, and that was easily a minute.
About 30 to 40 seconds.
Yeah.
I thought they said 4 minutes.
No, I listened to the dialogue.
I could have sworn they said minutes because that's why I had no problem with it. Oh.
I was sworn it was minutes too, and I saw it again today.
That's why I had absolutely no problem with that, because I was like, okay, they're in there for like 30 seconds. It's probably a major drain, but it's nowhere near the 4-minute mark, and that's why I had no complaint about it.
All right, well, give me a moment here. I am going to fast forward the episode to that point, and I'm going to listen to it again really quick.
Okay.
Oh. Okay,
what?
This is interesting. Picture that I have up on the stream right now. I'm not sure what to make of this. What do you guys make of this thing?
Do we know who is it?
I'm wondering who in Doctor Who it is.
I'm sorry, Matt, you just talked over the line. So give me just a moment here.
Subtitles, my friend.
But yeah, it's something to do with the Doctor Who anniversary, and look at that odd outfit.
In theory, you haven't checked the source
It is
yet.
4 seconds, by the way.
Okay.
The entropy will drain the energy from my hull. In 4 seconds, I will be stranded.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Maybe the doctor said minutes and the TARDIS said seconds, because the quote I'm
I
remembering is the
listened.
doctor.
I listened to the TARDIS dialogue.
Right.
Yeah, the TARDIS would be a little more knowledgeable of such things, to be honest.
True.
Okay, I'll look at that picture now. So that was my main plot hole number 2.
This guy, something about the 50th anniversary, it's just like, wait, what?
Maybe, but it's an actor. Right now, all we see is an actor in a coat with a costume underneath it. There's really not really enough to ask any questions about even just yet.
Yeah, but it kind of struck me as the celestial toy maker from the small picture.
No.
But looking up that close, it's like, no, you know what? No, it doesn't really look like that. What is that?
Looking at what we see of the costume, I would almost say black or white Guardian, but I don't think so. I don't think that either.
Yeah.
No. I think it's not enough data to go on.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Like it could be anything from a red shirt to an extra to anything.
Yeah, as far as we know, it could be just a period costume that we can't really tell what it is through the coat. So
right.
Mm-hmm. It just struck me as really odd and yet familiar at the same time. It's like, what? I don't know. I'll look at it later.
Okay.
Okay, but yeah, given what you just found, I would say that was something I hadn't thought was an issue that actually is then.
Yeah.
And in that very same scene, or slightly earlier, why the hell was the cloister bell going off?
The doctor's in danger.
The cloister bell doesn't give a shit about the doctor. The cloister bell only goes off if the TARDIS is in danger. And the TARDIS was just fine right where it was. In fact, answering the cloister bell put the TARDIS in danger. So, minus points for misuse of the cloister bell.
This is also the same season that had the phone on the outside of the TARDIS that doesn't work ringing.
Yes, but they actually acknowledged in the fact that shouldn't work.
And actually, I think they've done that before, too.
Yeah, they did it in the Empty Child way back first series, yes. Yeah. But that was established as why that did that was the fact that the possessed kid, I don't know what you'd call that, the altered kid, whatever, had the ability to manipulate anything remotely mechanical.
Yeah, that's true.
So that would be why that worked for that one. They didn't really explain why it worked in the other one, and I'm kind of waiting until the end of the series before I retroactively reduce my grade on that one for doing that. But this is a little different. This is the cloister bell. It's well established what the cloister bell does over the course of Doctor Who. Its first appearance was in Legopolis, which ironically Flynn, Bill, and myself were discussing last night. And it's established right there that it only goes off in the case of the dire emergencies when the TARDIS is in danger.
Which should never happen with the HADS system in place as was established last episode.
Yeah, but the HADS can be turned off. And HADS wouldn't work if the TARDIS was already in flight.
Oh, okay. So in an example of something like the beginning of the Mind Robber or Path of Destruction, is that the name of it? Wait,
yes.
No, not Path of Destruction. That's a
Edge of Destruction.
Edge of Destruction, there we go.
Yeah. Yes, in those cases, though they had not established the cloister bell in those, the cloister bell should have gone off in both situations.
But before we go into the TARDIS, to go to what we were talking about, did you want to go more into Frieza blowing up the planet syndrome, as you so dubbed it?
Oh, yes. I mentioned this to Bill the first time I saw it. For those of you that are listening and are familiar with anime are probably familiar with a series called Dragon Ball Z. The end of the second series or story arc of Dragon Ball Z, known as the Frieza Saga, the character Frieza blasts a massive hole in the planet and then says that it'll be 5 minutes.
Arguably, it was like
destroys itself.
Arguably, it was like the fifth saga, but it was like the second main arc of saga.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's at least another 10 to 15 episodes during which time is passing. And only at the end of that does the planet actually blow up. This has been, now some people, will chalk it up to dramatic license and stuff, but no, you sit there with a freaking stopwatch, and even if you take out the amount of filler in there, it's still a good, probably about an hour for that 5 minutes to happen. And that turned off a lot of viewers to that series at the time, and it's become rather infamous for that kind of over dramatic time dilation, and this takes this up to 11. I mean, if that was a 7 on the scale, this is an 11 or 12, because the difference in time here is literally thousands of years to a second. And they established that the thing is falling apart, and it would be a matter of minutes. And the Doctor then proceeds to wander around for about twice that length, looking for people. It just doesn't make sense. Plus, the entire Doctor story on how pocket dimensions work kind of pissed me off, because that's not really how pocket dimensions work. If you think about, how pocket dimensions are supposed to work, the TARDIS itself is actually kind of a pocket dimension, at least the inside of it. It's basically attached to the main dimension, accessible or sporadically accessible, but still maintains most of the same basic laws. And then his theory on why the TARDIS couldn't go there, actually, he gives the parallel universe description on why the TARDIS can't go there.
Yeah, that's one of the few things that actually confused me too.
We have actually seen in Doctor Who continuity what happens when you try to put a pocket dimension inside a pocket dimension, and that again is the episode that Bill Flynn and I were talking about, Logopolis. In that episode, the Doctor tries to materialize around a normal police box to take a measurement, but that police box actually turns out to be the Master's TARDIS. So you have a TARDIS materializing around a TARDIS, and that causes no end of dimensioning problems.
Until you get back to the control room and pull them both back apart.
Well, no, the problem was you'd try to leave the control room and you'd find yourself in the control room. You would basically come out of the Doctor's TARDIS into the Master's TARDIS, and then try to leave the Master's TARDIS and come out in the Doctor's TARDIS. It was kind of a secular end. And that, by the way, as far as common theories on what happens when you put a pocket dimension inside a pocket dimension, is actually favorable. Other non-Doctor Who sources that involve pocket dimensions inside of pocket dimensions usually wind up being very, very bad. For example, Dungeons and Dragons. You put a portable hole inside a girdle of many pockets, and you basically have just set off a nuke.
Didn't someone also try to put a bag of holding inside of a bag of holding one time in your group?
Actually, that was the example I just used. That was the end of a campaign. Because there were no survivors.
Well, we're done with this game. Thanks for putting that inside of that.
I should be the one to do that. Damn, my bag of holding is full. Let me buy 4 more bags of holding and put them inside it.
Yeah, no, it was the rogue in our party had a girdle of many pockets on, and basically folded up a bunch of items and threw it in the girdle of many pockets, one of which he didn't realize was a portable hole. And so, or he did it without thinking, and the GM just looked at him for about a minute, and he's like, "What? What?" And goes on telling us about the resulting explosion, which did about 100 d6 damage to all of our characters, who were only level 3. And yeah, end of that storyline.
Should do that, but make sure you do it on top of a catapult and get rid of it quickly.
No, it was pretty much instantaneous, Matt. The only pause was at the GM pausing the story as he just stared in sheer disbelief at the player.
The interesting,
by the way, was a 10-year veteran and should have known better.
The interesting thing about this is, now that we're talking about it, I'm pretty sure the Doctor has other things that are the equivalent of bags of holding that are inside the TARDIS.
Like his pockets.
Yeah, I was
Like
gonna
his
say,
own pockets,
I'm pretty
yeah.
sure he has
We're
at least
talking
one
about
pair of
Time
pencil
Lord
pockets.
technology.
Yeah.
And we're not
Of
talking...
course, yeah, then again, if anyone could come up with a way to prevent that, it would be Time Lords.
Mm-hmm.
We have seen Time Lord tech do a lot more wizard-did-it things.
And it's also quite possible that the Doctor's bag of holding, like, stuff that he has might be somehow intricately linked to the TARDIS so that it doesn't affect it.
That's also
true.
possible, yes.
There's like a storage room somewhere in the
Right.
TARDIS that as the Doctor reaches into his coat pocket, a large hand comes down and grabs what he wants, you know?
Which would actually make his pocket more like the way I envision the TARDIS door to be than the way the TARDIS has actually been written in the series.
Mm.
Because I always kind of envisioned something like that to be essentially completely separate universe with only the link being the door. The only problem with that is that the TARDIS can materialize around things.
Mm-hmm. Which was always kind of, which it did in the classic series. It was even more obvious in the classic series when the interior and exterior doors were two completely different designs.
Right.
Where you had, the police box outer doors and the
inner one was what, the white honeycomb type thing, or
That was massive.
Mm-hmm. I used to love those doors, by the way. I had a plan when I was a kid, when I was going to get a house, all my interior doors were going to look like that. But, alas, did not come to be. But, yeah, so, when they rewrote the new series and they created it so that the inner doors looked like the outer police box doors, I was kind of a little affronted. Little disappointed that, because you could imagine that between the two doors was some kind of dimensional interface that you...
Right.
A threshold that you had to walk across.
Yeah.
And now they kind of took that little safety barrier out, and I was just like...
Right, and of course, part of doing that was now there's a lot of scenes of people walking in and out, going either direction. So you need, one door that they can walk through.
Yeah, I've gotten used to it now.
Right.
It's
I think they use more camera angles now than they did with the old TARDIS.
It doesn't really make sense for a case of something that have a chameleon circuit. I mean, just from a technical standpoint, what happens whenever the chameleon circuit would activate, the door itself would physically change shape?
Yeah, but then again, the new desktop interface was based on TARDIS 7, I guess. It's based on the idea that the chameleon circuit isn't going to change unless it goes invisible, so they don't have to worry about the door changing.
Times, Bill, it's gone to TARDIS 8 now.
It's
more touch-daddy.
I don't like TARDIS 8. It's like an iPhone in a TARDIS. And my mother just got a Windows 8 computer, and I'm like, oh, God, I would not want that. No.
Yeah, I'm not exactly fond of the concept myself. I just had to make the crack when you said TARDIS 7.
Well, I was pretending 8 didn't exist.
Because most people who actually know about Windows want to admit that 8, what's that? That never existed.
Here's how Windows went. There was 2000, and then there was XP, and then there was 7, and we haven't gotten an update yet.
Oh, no, you got to go farther back than that.
I thought 98 was good.
You had 95, and it was crap.
I don't think I ever had 95.
You had 95, I think, revision 3, which was half decent.
Okay, I don't think I ever dealt with 95.
You had 98, and it was crap. And then you had 98 second edition.
Oh, okay.
That was good.
Oh yeah, 98 second edition was awesome. I've missed my 98.
Then you had Windows 2000, then you had Windows ME, which was complete and total and utter crap.
It was total putz.
It was beyond crap. Trust me, I did tech support when that puppy came out. Ugh. At the same time, you had Windows 2000.
And you know what?
As nice and stable,
as a 12-year-old,
run.
As a 12-year-old, I was so confused because I thought Millennium Edition and 2000 were synonyms. So I thought they were the same edition. And I don't understand why the same edition would have two different names. It wasn't until years later that it finally clicked. Like, okay, they just made that many editions in a short amount of time, I guess because Millennium Edition sucked.
Well, no. At the time, you see, at the same time that you had 95 and 98, there was another version of Windows out there called Windows NT. And Windows NT was network. It was basically for, business servers, etc.
Now that you say that, I think I did see that a couple of times.
So Windows Millennium Edition or Windows ME was based on the 95-98 style, and Windows 2000 was based off of NT. The problem is, at that point, people were designing stuff for Windows 95 and 98 that would not run on NT. The difference between them is the fact that Windows 95, 98, Millennium all ran as a extension off of Microsoft DOS, which had been being used since the 70s, early 80s.
Right.
The old black C prompt screens.
Right.
And they still use this as the basis for what Windows ran on, where NT ran on itself natively, and it had an emulator for DOS. And after looking at Windows Millennium and Windows 2000, they moved on to create XP, which was based off of Windows 2000, which was based off of Windows NT. This is why most people that have a Windows XP machine still have a Windows NT folder. And Windows XP was good. So they decided to expand on Windows XP, and they created Windows Vista, which was complete and utter and horrible total crap. Do you see a pattern here, people?
Yeah.
It's like Star Trek movies. Only every other one is good.
Especially
Windows
ones that
7
weren't directed by Shatner.
Windows 8 is shit. Wait for Windows 9, people. If Microsoft follows the same thing,
so we can go ahead of time and say don't buy Windows 10.
Yes.
Probably.
I feel
The
like
way
we're
they're
talking
running right
about
now,
Doctor
yes.
Who, but I don't remember how.
You got stuck on TARDIS.
Talking about the TARDIS door.
Yeah. Massive tangent, but still good advice.
Tangent ahoy!
But yeah, so
Kind of a
yeah,
saber.
the TARDIS interface, the whole pocket dimension thing, as it was described, both to the group and to Clara, just hit me as wrong. He seemed to be trying to describe more of a parallel time stream, but he kept referring to it as a pocket dimension, and it just kept, annoying the hell out of me.
Yeah, I think all it really needed was a script editor, but I guess I don't know where to find one of those in Doctor Who.
That's technically should have been Moffat, but, Moffat doesn't care about such minor...
Yeah, he's too busy writing about his companion of the week.
Or writing for Sherlock, we can never tell which.
Mm-hmm. Since he seems to blend them both.
I actually, on my Series 6 review, which will probably be published in about a month, that I just finished writing, I actually going off on a bit of a tangent about the script editing part of the job, and
Yeah,
major reason as to why Series 6 is what it is.
Yeah, there needs to be a better script editor for this because RTD was very good at looking through other people's stuff and going, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, it needs to be fixed.
Granted, he would sometimes tell them to add in completely ludicrous ideas like pig monsters, but
Actually, that was his own.
that's what I mean. He would tell them to add in. Oh, you're saying
He
that was his own
personally
episode?
added in pig monsters.
Right.
Yeah, I think World War III.
No, I'm talking about Daleks in Manhattan. That was somebody else's episode, but he added the pigs.
Oh, that I did not know. I
Oh.
did not know that.
I thought that was his own episode.
It was Helen Raynor's episode, but he added the pigs. Because I remember the writer at some point had an interview, and I saw that quoted on. Okay, the source was Wikipedia, but
Yeah. You never know with Wikipedia.
true. But to the best of my knowledge, it's accurate anyway. I mean,
Okay. Yeah, I had no idea that Moffat added those.
Davies.
Davies.
Oh yeah, Davies added those. As far as I was aware, it was completely done by the person that was mentioned.
Yeah, that particular episode story, whatever, was kind of cuckoo to begin with. So
No, I liked the key portion of that of Daleks in Manhattan, the key plot, but when it started branching off, it kind of went weird because the idea was stolen actually from the old Second Doctor episode, Evil of the Daleks, I think.
Yeah.
So
Time Lord DNA travels through lightning. That's all I need to say.
That's part of what branches off.
Yeah, except it's not lightning, it's gamma radiation that looks like lightning and is shot in the form of lightning from the sky.
I like the core concepts of the Daleks being trapped on 1930s New York. So you get that, that 30s Art Deco era feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yes, the concept of Daleks trying to manipulate themselves to have a human factor, again, is an idea going back to Power of the Daleks.
And also, I think, I think with I think RTD's Daleks are very much the Daleks from Planet of the Daleks, where, if I remember right, that episode was the one where they essentially had this whole planet where they were just experimenting, trying to find new ways to destroy and conquer.
Which one was that?
Was that Planet of the Daleks?
Possibly.
Where they essentially had this whole planet where they were experimenting on things?
Because I've never seen the episode itself. I've only read the novelization, and I haven't read the novelization in a long time.
But if Planet is the one that had the invisible people and
yes, it was.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
Yes, that's the one.
And considering Davies' love of the Third Doctor, that kind of makes a lot of sense.
But yes, but when he worked usually as a base editor for other people's stuff, telling them what needed to be changed as far as not adding stuff, but just changing, correcting their technical issues, Davies did a good job. But Moffat doesn't care about those little details. And so they'll pass him and they'll go unchecked, unheeded, as it were. And we start seeing little glitches and errors like this. And Cross seems to be one of the brunt leaders of this series. Our other big show at this point, Gaddis, his episode really didn't have any continuity glitches, other than the fact that it seems the Ice Warriors were, there far too early. But I'd actually have to look back at the old original Ice Warrior stuff and see if there was a reason for that. But no, Cross can set a scene. I loved the first 10-15 minutes of this episode with them creeping around the spooky haunted house. It felt like a haunted house in the 70s. It felt like that. I almost expected to see Jack Nicholson come running through there going, "Here's Johnny!" It had the right feel for the era. It had the right setup. It was just everything from the point he started going through time and taking pictures felt wrong to me because it was presented wrong and it followed through wrong.
Speaking of which, I think this is Clara's end of the world, isn't it?
Sort of, yes. She
every companion every companion in the new show pretty much has that one episode where they're confronted with their own mortality and the idea that they're not going to survive millions of years, and this is the one. This is that one for her.
And I would love to see a companion that just goes, "Wow, everything's gone. I'd be dead by now. This is awesome."
Yeah. But see, I'm kind of surprised that the Doctor and nobody else has really come up with the idea. It'd be like, no, nobody's dead for you because you can always just go back to when they were alive. And of course, there's time stream crossing issues and such that would prevent it if you go too much. But for example, the Doctor has gone back to Rose before he met her at least once, and commented on doing it at least one more time. So there's always that opportunity to, that person will never be dead for you because of that. 100 years from now, you can go back and be like, oh, Rose isn't busy this day. I can take her out to lunch.
Until they slap you with a restraining order for stalking them. But that seems to be more.
Well, that's a little excessive.
It's a little more Matt Smith lately. Yeah. Just a little.
Yeah, but no, my big problem with Cross is he's established so much and then just proceeds to break it all within the progress of his own episode. And that's when things start falling apart. The aliens felt tacked on.
Yes. If you cut out the alien lovers, and if you cut out the three guys from Rings of Akhaten, both of the issues would probably improve for them, just because those plot lines would have needed a lot more time to add anything to the episodes, and they didn't necessarily take time away from other things, because no time was dedicated to them, but they took attention away.
They took attention away, and really, if there should have been there, more time should have been spent on them. Like I said,
right.
With aliens, the Doctor should have been suspicious.
Right.
From the moment of, who are you, where did you come from, can I put you back? Kind of thing, instead of just, let's leave them here in 1970s
right.
Earth.
Or even
multiply.
Or even asking, what was her name, the time traveler, do you know where these guys came from? Were they maybe bacteria brought back from the future that mutated in this other dimension?
In which case, if that's the case, you should probably still go and find some kind of abandoned planet that can live on happily ever after.
Right.
Instead of discovering they have a taste for human flesh and he comes back. Or I'd love to see him come back 5 to 10 years later and find half the world had been devoured by these creatures and go, oops.
My bad. Sorry about that.
Where did he leave them at the end? Because it felt like that part was so rushed. I didn't even see what the.
Well, he was taking A to B, so we're assuming he's taking them back to 70s and the house.
Yeah. Okay. I thought he was bringing them back to the pocket universe, in which case it's like, okay, here you go. You can have a few, 30 more seconds together before your universe implodes.
Yeah, not really fair there.
Yeah, he's trying to save them both, so that means he's taking them into present day, 1970s day Earth, and it's like...
Now, another thing that bothered me about this episode is the fact that this is the second episode we've had in a row where we haven't really had a bad guy.
And I don't really mind that.
I mean, an actual factual villain. I mean, the Ice Warrior was an opponent, but he turned out to, mostly just being lost and worried. And in this one, anybody we thought was a bad guy turned out to be, an okay person.
Unless they do have a taste for human flesh.
Right, but if so, it's not addressed in this episode.
Right.
So my question becomes, and this is a problem that I've had with Moffat, is... he really tends to downplay the villains. The Doctor fights evil. That's what he does.
That essentially that's just pretty much not been the style of the show for this era. I guess you could call it at this point. That was very much something Russell T Davies did a lot of. That was very much something that Moffat really doesn't. He wants to go more for the fairy tale feel.
Moffat was the best of the Doctor versus the villain stuff back when you looked at what he did during the RTD era.
Well, unless you count I guess you could count the Angels as a villain.
I do count the Angels as a villain.
Right, they'd be the most.
The Vashta as a villain.
The Empty Child wasn't so much a villain as it was, an accident of.
Okay, I will give
whatever happened.
I will give you that one.
The Vashta Narada, if I recall, were essentially just predatory creatures trying to make their own food. Although I forget what exactly the plot with the whole thing in the computer was. I'm a little hazy on that. I have to rewatch that part.
The Vashta Narada were pissed because they because they cut down the trees in which they live. But the Doctor established that these were not good things. If you listen to Tennant's dialogue of speaking about them, he talks about how much, that they're uber carnivores, they're piranhas of the air, so I really would love to see him do more with those. But the way he's fucked up the Weeping Angels, I'm kind of afraid to have him do it,
Yeah, they would grow like 6 new powers, and they'd gain the ability to travel through eye contact or something.
Because as much as I've been bitching about Moffat, Silence of the Library, Forest of the Dead are 2 of my favorite episodes. They're not my favorite.
And ironically, they're probably my least favorite Moffat penned episodes. Yeah.
Really?
Or at least close to it.
And really, I think still topping my list is The Empty Child the Doctor Dances.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely among my favorite episodes.
And then I think I'd have to follow that up by Human Nature, Family of Blood, which was not a Moffat one. But I think Silence of the Library, Forest of the Dead would probably wind up number 3 on that list of story arcs in the new series. Because, I don't know, I didn't mind River Song when she first came out, so she wasn't an issue on me in that particular
For some reason, when I rewatched that season, I don't know why, but for some reason I think I skipped that 2-parter when I rewatched the season, and I have no idea why. I should go back and watch that before my review on it goes live.
Probably should.
Yep.
But, so there's my issue, is the fact that Cross just doesn't follow up and he does not do the research. He's basically the polar opposite of Gaddis, in my opinion, who has a very good story but fails to do the setup. And whereas with Rings, he was able to kind of hobble through in the story. This one, for me, the story just kind of started imploding on itself with all the various little holes and niches that was there.
See, the thing is I really liked this episode, and until you brought up the fact that, oh wait, there is some consistency holes, major consistency holes, it otherwise is a perfectly fine episode to me.
Pretty much the same things you said about Cotton. It's a very, aesthetic-wise, it's a very powerful episode, but when you start looking at what's happening and, anything, the script is where the episode starts to fall apart, and this episode is along those lines when you start to look at all of the temporal things and all of that.
He just tries to do too much, and it kind of collapses on him. And Matt, there are things that do have as many holes as this that I've watched, and I can suspend my belief on the holes and enjoy it. One of those would be the 2009 Star Trek movie.
Right.
Which,
which I have yet to watch.
The interesting thing is, when I watch an episode like Hyde, I tend to watch it as though I'm not actually watching the episode, as though I were the script editor looking at it as the first draft. I'm like, okay, if this was tweaked, this would be a great scene, and I kind of remember it as though it were actually tweaked. I go through and I'm just like, I make all these corrections in my mind, so at the end it's as though I watched what what they intended rather than what they actually put on paper.
Yeah,
put on screen.
Oh yeah, I can do that too. The thing is, the way I watch is the first time I watch is always, of course, the Saturday that it airs. I watch it, and I basically watch it from a fan standpoint at that point. I'm watching it, and I'm basically just trying to enjoy the episode for what it is. And if the show manages to get past my suspension of disbelief on that one, I'm usually pretty cool with it. Only a couple of times have I reversed that decision on the second watch through, one of those being Asylum of the Daleks. Which like I have mentioned before, I thoroughly enjoyed on my first watch, and then just the second watch, it just kept hitting me. It was like, what the hell was I watching before?
if I recall, on the first watch through, I was the one who liked Asylum the least, and after the second watch through, you took that spot.
Yeah, it was just at that point things just kept hitting me, and it just. I mean, I had frowned mention of Scarrow in Asylum when I first watched it, but then it was the other things that hit me the second time, like they had advertised the Daleks and they didn't actually move and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it was those kind of things that drug it down the second time when I realized it. Normally that doesn't happen. My opinion of a show will tweak slightly, but not to any point. This one, I couldn't even get past the first watching without having issues because my brain was trying to, deal with the whole concept, and I kept hitting plot holes. And usually if I'm seeing plot holes on my fan view through, I'm having a problem. Because that means I'm going to find more holes on my second watch through.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with a plot hole like this one, with the whole 3 seconds equals, for everything. I mean, that is established there, and it's written there, so that's a true plot hole.
Right.
And you can drive a fucking Mack truck through it.
Because it happens so often in this episode.
Mm-hmm. That, a lot of things I nitpick about are continuity nitpicks. I will admit that. I've been a fan of this show for so long,
right,
that the whole continuity runs through my brain a lot, so when I see something that goes against it, it rubs me the wrong way.
Right.
This is not a continuity nitpick. This is an actual hole in the plot.
Speaking of continuity, what did you think to the to the nods in this episode?
I liked the nods. With the whole 70s feel, they were aiming for a Third Doctor-esque episode, apparently.
Right. And they did early on, talking to the guy in the military, and he, the Doctor mentioned some stuff that he knows. He doesn't explain how, but he's the Doctor, and he's basically like, oh, he's military intelligence, and it's like something about that scene just kind of gave me a Third Doctor vibe anyway.
I'm surprised.
I don't know if it's a reference to the military or what, but
yeah, I'm surprised Unit wasn't name dropped there.
Right, right.
I really was. I was expecting it, and it didn't happen, and that surprised me.
It could have been, but then again, I mean, and if this was like a Gaddis episode, it would have been.
It would have made sense.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, early 70s, Unit would have just have been formed.
Right.
So people wouldn't have established of who's what there, so he could have mentioned he was the scientific advisor for Unit and gotten away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And also, not to mention be partially on money.
We had the nod to the Eye of Harmony, which was technically a Fourth Doctor thing and a Eighth Doctor
mostly
thing.
Known as an Eighth Doctor thing, but yeah, it was Deadly Assassin was its first reference.
Yeah,
I think.
So that was.
But
then we had the Metebelis 3 crystal, or as they called it, Metebelis 3.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not familiar with the reference, but I mean with the original version of it was, but I heard.
Let's see. The Doctor, I think for most of the time he was after he got the TARDIS back after the 3 Doctors, was trying to make a trip to Metebelis 3 for these beautiful crystals. By
I remember
the Green Death, he had finally gotten one.
Got you.
He had managed to travel there, and he was using it to. The crystal was supposed to be perfectly flawless, and the light refracting off of it could actually clear problems in a person's mind. It freed them from mind control.
Gotcha.
Which was an issue in the episode because their mind was being controlled by a supercomputer known as the Boss.
So this was actually relevant in the fact that it probably would have been able to be used to hone her psychic abilities, and it wasn't just a nod to the history. It was actually relevant to what was going on.
Yeah, Metebelis 3 and the crystals was then brought back in Planet of the Spiders, the Third Doctor's swan song, because he had to return the crystal because of, issues.
Well, he must have gone back and gotten it.
What?
He must have gone back and gotten it at some point in the following 700 years.
I'm kind of wondering how he did that, because if I remember correctly, most of the crystals on Metebelis 3 were used as a giant web a giant psychic web created by this basically Spider Queen that wound up mentally frying herself to death with it and irradiated the hell out of the Third Doctor, which is why he became the Fourth Doctor.
But did we actually ever see the Third Doctor leave that crystal behind, though? Because I don't remember that.
I would have to rewatch the episode. I have not seen Planet of the Spiders in for freaking ever.
Would you put it past the Doctor to have nixed two and claim that there was only one?
Depends upon the Doctor's
mood
that
that
month.
Past any version of the Doctor?
It's possible. It's also possible that he went back after the war, and the war changed certain things so that the spiders never became a dominant life form on Metabelus 3 and, re-nicked the crystal.
Yep. Always possibilities.
The fact that we've seen both David Tennant's Doctor and Matt Smith's Doctor had spent long times wandering around on their own means he could have done it really at any time.
Heck, he could have even done it again recently. Doing travels.
So yes, I liked those little nods, and yes, those nods worked. I thought there was at least one other nod I saw in this episode.
Other than the parallel universe continuity, which,
like I said, kind of falls apart because it wasn't described right.
Right.
It wasn't. It wasn't described right. It wasn't executed right, and it caused more problems plot-wise than it solved.
Somebody's making a humming sound.
That's even in silent mode, my phone will still vibrate when certain things happen.
I turned vibration off on my phone.
I did too, but certain things will still cause a lesser version of a vibration.
So, yeah, another problem I of course had in this was the TARDIS.
You mentioned you didn't like the interface.
I didn't like the interface because it's once again cheapening the value of what a Time Lord is. Moffat seems to be very good at pissing me off on that.
I understand you there, but if I were coming at this as Neil Cross, I would say there's a precedent set for this in Let's Kill Hitler. Regardless of your opinion on that, it's something that happened there.
I have to rewatch Let's Kill Hitler because I think I may have actually repressed a lot of it.
Never saw it. I don't intend to.
Because I don't remember this interface.
When the Doctor was dying of poison, the interface came out, and first it cycled through his past companions because he wanted to talk to someone that didn't make him feel guilty, and then it was talking to him in the form of young Amelia Pond in order to give that actress an excuse to come back to the show.
Yar.
That was the whole "you will be dead in 32 minutes." See, you're ignoring 31 whole minutes where I'm not dead. I'll be perfectly fine. You'll be fine for 31 minutes. You'll be dead in 32 minutes. That whole sequence.
Okay.
I'm not attempting to do that accent because I could not do it justice.
In short, the reaction of the three or so people watching be just...
Okay, that might also maybe what's leaving a bad taste in my mouth, is I didn't think it was a very... I thought it was a very ad hoc piece of crap idea in the Series 6th. And I don't like it any better coming back now. Who wrote that? Moffat.
That was Moffat. Yeah, Moffat wrote that.
Drill to the brain.
That was one of the 5 episodes that he paid personal attention to that season.
He needs to stop doing that. Really.
Right.
Really.
And I was actually shocked when I went through the list and realized that Davies and Moffat each wrote the same number of episodes per season, and yet somehow Davies still managed to edit while he was doing that because his episodes weren't as overwritten as Moffat's. Like, I think Moffat just spends an entire day trying to out-clever himself, in the planning stages of the script. Whereas Davies is just like, this would be cool, and then That's the script.
Yeah, you could always see, you could always mentally picture Davies just chuckling insanely to himself as he's just hammering this out over a weekend.
And going, this is awesome, this is awesome.
Yeah. Like Davies, I just picture as, a fanboy in between conventions writing down, what he thinks would be the most awesome thing to see. And then it becomes a script and goes on the screen.
I would have really loved to have seen the planning stages for the Series 2 for Army of Ghosts and Doomsday.
Oh, yeah.
I almost see his. I almost see him being the creatively the equivalent of Weird Al when he's trying to create video material. I could just see him just burst into the writing room going, Daleks versus Cybermen. That's what we're doing this year. You can see it, can't you?
Yeah.
How are we topping last year? I got it. Daleks versus Cybermen. So you need to write an episode that brings the Cybermen in, and yeah.
Or I could also just imagine him having a conversation with Nick Briggs. Like, listen, we're going to do an episode. You're going to have an argument with yourself, and that's going to be the main attraction.
And Nick Briggs would have thought that was just freaking awesome.
Yeah.
But Moffat seems to be that he's writing almost to try to make a tribute to his own ego.
It does sometimes, and I mentioned that in our when we were talking about Bells of St. John. That was a theme I noticed in the episode. And on one hand, it's good that he's trying to top himself and do something better, but on the other hand, it gets rather unwieldy, and there's no one to rein him in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, Bells of St. John, it kind of came off right.
Yeah, that's
it did like the specific episodes where it basically just seemed like, the specific parts of the episode where it just seemed like he was putting himself on a pedestal almost above the Doctor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that really does bother me about Moffat, and it bothers me about a lot of his companions is the fact that, he writes them up better than the Doctor, and that, that really shouldn't have been happening since 1964-65, when the Doctor became the main character on this show.
Yeah. That's something he's doing on his own, and it really doesn't work for a show called Doctor Who.
Well, no, it worked in 63, Matt.
It worked in certain ways. Like if I recall, wasn't Zoe written to be smarter than the Doctor?
Not smarter, but smart.
Extremely
smarter than your
smart,
average
yes.
companion.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, Zoe was smarter than the average companion. Yay!
Oh God, don't go there.
But no, it's But it was always the fact that you also got to remember Zoe was playing off of Patrick Troughton,
Right.
who played himself as kind of this bumbling hobo.
Right. Like I seem to remember in the the specials that BBC America and probably BBC also have been doing once a month this year, where it's basically like the Doctor would make a fool of himself and Zoe would fix it and be correct or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So it's not really so much as Zoe was smarter than Doctor, it's just the Doctor wasn't really using his smarts in that particular persona.
Mm-hmm.
How Zoe would do paired up against like Tom Baker or even John Pertwee.
Right.
I was trying to go farther away for more, relative, but I think even with the next persona, you would have definitely seen that Zoe would have been getting smarted over by the third Doctor and even the fourth Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And now that you say that, I'm kind of thinking the 9th and 10th, 9 and 10 looking at her like, oh, she's so quaint. She thinks she can read.
She thinks she's people.
Yeah.
She's so
The Doctor would say something, Zoe would look at him, and the Doctor would look at her like she just drooled all over herself.
Yeah. Like, well, of course. I mean, like, you're just stating the obvious.
Uh,
She might have been able to work with the Fifth Doctor.
Yeah.
Because he was more soft-spoken.
mm-hmm.
But really, oh god. Imagine her trying to lock wits with the Sixth Doctor.
God. I could see her just pulling out the irons right now to give him a whacking because she's so pissed at him. That seems to be the way of the Sixth Doctor.
I need to watch more of the Sixth Doctor. I mean, I've only straight up watched one serial of his.
Which one?
I mean, Daleks.
Yeah, that's only a two-parter.
Right.
Watch Vengeance of Varos, and even though it's not really recommended by a lot of people, Attack of the Cybermen. Those are like right next to each other in there, and I would probably throw in Mark of the Rani and the Two Doctors in there too.
Mark of the Rani I liked. The Cyberman one I liked too.
Really, once you've got those, you could probably throw out Time Lash and the Twin Dilemma, and not have any adverse effects because those episodes were horrible.
I like how you're not saying anything about Vervoids because you seem to have exactly one opinion of that episode.
Well, you see, the thing is, it's also an episode that's, it's actually part of one gigantic story arc called The Trial of the Time Lord, which was poorly produced and ended really weakly, so I try to avoid that entire thing. The only thing, if you're ever going to watch something in there, I would watch the episode before the one with the Vervoids, because there is one thing that makes that particular story, and that's the fact that it has Brian Blessed in it.
Is the Ultimate Foe any good?
What's that?
The Ultimate Foe, is that any good?
No, that's the final end of the Trial of the Time Lord.
Right.
It was written rapidly by Pip and Jane Baker because the previous people were unable to finish it, and it just really is just like a kind of a what the fuck.
Yeah. And if I recall, not much of the Sixth Doctor's persona showed through in Dimensions in Time.
Probably not, but no, to get his unstable, thunderous personality, the serials I mentioned would be the ones to watch. Let's see. What else was there about this episode that I liked, I didn't like? Like I said, I liked the haunted house feel. It was very 70s horror. You either expected, Jack Nicholson to come out, or you expected to turn a corner and see Barnabas Collins. Either one would have worked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know what I was talking about, I was referencing Dark Shadows. And The Shining. The Shining would have been with Jack Nicholson.
I hope they know what the original Dark Shadows is. Otherwise, I'm sad.
The ending, I thought, was kind of completely lame. Because it's, he realizes the whole monster thing is an afterthought, and then it really doesn't get any follow-through. The fact that all of this was done so the Doctor could ask this person a question on what the hell is Clara. I'm like, so you're basically shooting skeet with a howitzer.
Me?
Well, okay. You know what skeet shooting is, right?
Yeah.
They pull clay pigeon in the air, you shoot it with a rifle. Now imagine doing that with a howitzer. It's one of those big guns that they used to carry on the end of Jeeps to fire over mountains. We're talking cannon.
Oh, this has got an area of effect then.
This is kind of like what the Doctor was doing just so that he could talk to this psychic to find out what she thought about Clara. It seemed to be overboard.
Yeah, I guess they did finally cover that part of why they were there in the first place.
Yeah, they covered it within like the last 5 minutes.
Oh, speaking of why they were there, this was something that struck me during the episode. It feels very wrong to me to have someone say the word Ghostbusters and have it followed up by any other theme. Especially the way she says the word Ghostbusters and it immediately cuts to the Doctor Who thing, and it's just like it just feels wrong.
It would have been nice if Matt Smith had actually said, like, who are you going to call right after that?
Right.
And just watch the complete bewilderness on
his face. If I recall,
Ghostbusters references, 11 years before the actual Ghostbusters movie came out.
And if I recall, Tennant and Rose did that at some point, didn't they?
Yes, they did. They did it during Army of Ghosts.
Yes, exactly. That's right.
And yeah, just as they were coming out with that equipment, and it was
looked like a giant proton pack anyway. So you know what? I'll let that one go.
That's the whole reason they were making the reference, Matt.
Yeah, as I was saying, that's the entire reason why I let that one go. They have a freaking proton pack. Of course I'm going to let that one fly.
I actually liked that one because that was... If my friends and I had been lifting that kind of equipment, somebody would have said the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's grade A geek humor right there.
Yep.
But no, this episode, it falls flat and a bit anachronistic as they're telling it, there. And no, I didn't really feel that about it cutting to the theme there, but I was kind of waiting for a little more follow-through on the joke.
Yeah.
Right.
I was mildly disappointed on that, yeah. I felt there should have been more follow-through.
I mean, if it was my own writing, it would have been, who are you? Ghostbusters. Really? Nothing? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, right. 1973. Right.
Right, yeah, actually that sounds like something the 11th Doctor would say.
Yeah, when the proper person's writing him.
Yeah, it would have been more amusing and less that... Oh, there is something else I wanted to bring up.
One more or less.
Doctor's 3 catchphrases were actually used in this, but instead of being the big overblown statement, they were both used quietly.
Oh.
I remember Geronimo was.
Mm-hmm. And then back when he was in the parallel universe, he does do the "Come on then, big boy."
That's right. Yes, you're right. Because I remember actually the first time I watched that scene, I was like, shouldn't it be "Come on then"?
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
They're both understated, and they both still work in this.
Oh yeah, they work much better than the last couple times we've seen them.
He said "big boy" and not "baby."
Yeah, he tends to use the "big boy," I think.
He tends to flip-flop the last bit.
Yeah. Still, it's kind of amusing watching those. I mean, I must admit, I like the "Come on then" more than I do the Geronimo.
Did he call anything cool?
What? No, I actually looked for that. He did not. Well, other than cool spot, but that was not saying the spot is cool. That was meaning the spot was not warm.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I found a wonderful picture here, and Randy, you should get this one. Stay close to the candles. The stairway can be treacherous. And it's a picture from this episode.
Stay close to the candles. The stairway can be treacherous.
Oh, come on, dude, you should get this.
It's ringing. Bells are going off in my brain, but it's not accessing.
Oh, come on. Mel Brooks, man.
Oh, yes! You know how long it's been since I've seen that movie? It's been at least 5 years.
Dude, I have the DVD. Just ask me, you can watch it.
I haven't watched it in 5 years. I have to go down to Arlington and pick that up and watch that, or see if it's on. I think it might be on Netflix.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's on Netflix. It should be. It's Mel Brooks.
Yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, we're referring to Young Frankenstein.
Ah.
I love that movie.
Is one of the 2 movies I recommend as being Mel Brooks at the height of his awesome. The other one being Blazing Saddles, which I managed to show to Matt just last weekend.
My buddy Mike has that movie. We just never got around to it. Usually we're watching stuff from our next review.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that any geek should have to experience at least once in their life. It's right up there with Holy Grail in my book.
Mm-hmm. I'm just scrolling down. It's like, oh, a Mel Brooks reference with Doctor Who. Yes. So yeah. So where were we?
I believe I was just mentioning. I had mentioned the fact that he'd used the reference, and they were more understated than his usual overblown speech form.
Which
And they worked in this. I don't like Geronimo as much as I like Come On Then, because really a British guy stating a catchphrase used by American soldiers in World War II about a 19th century Native American.
That, and every time he says Geronimo, it's in a scene where he should be saying Alonzi.
Yeah, it was
So
really the replacement for Alonzi.
Right.
Which I was never really fond of, but what the hell. And it actually, Geronimo actually made a lot of sense considering what he was about to do in this.
Actually, yeah, for this one it did make more sense.
And the Come On Then, yeah, you almost expected him to yell it, and when he didn't, it was just like, okay, that was actually kind of awesome. Apparently, Moffat's the one that really likes I use this is cool, because I think every episode he's done that in.
You're right, I think.
One of his.
Mm-hmm. Stetsons are cool. Was that in Impossible Astronaut, or was that in Town Called Mercy?
That was originally an Impossible Astronaut.
Okay. And I think every time he's had a Fez was a Moffat episode as well.
Now, mind you, he did have a Stetson again in A Town Called Mercy.
Right.
But he didn't do that. I'm wearing a Stetson now. Stetsons are cool. No, that was already done.
Right.
But yeah, when he tends to do the "this is cool" stuff, it tends to be Moffat writing, and everyone else seems to like the other catchphrases much better. Mm-hmm. And I don't blame them.
I don't blame them either. Yeah.
Yeah, it's "this is cool" thing has kind of run its course already.
Oh, I'll make jokes about it. I'll make cracks about it.
Well, the whole taking that line seriously thing, though, that's kind of gone out the window.
Yep. And I think Moffat's even starting to realize that a little bit. He'll do...
It jumped the shark and the snowman.
What was the one in the snowman?
When he put on the bow tie and Claire is standing in the room, something like, "It's getting cool." And she's like, "It's cool." He's like, "Yes, bow ties are cool." Looking at himself in the mirror, admiring the bow tie, and she's like, "No, it's getting colder."
Yeah, well, that was also ripping on it too. He was starting to rip on it then. I think the fact that, people, it's becoming a groaner line.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, my fondness for anime. I was watching a Ranma 1/2 abridged, and the character Ranma Saotome in the original run had this yellow shirt with a bow tie on it. And they actually spent about 5 minutes on the argument on how bow ties were cool. And I'm just like, okay, it's entered this level of that. It's now a grown statement.
Right.
Although I do like the fact that in that same episode they then to go arguing over Tennant versus Smith. So I was just like, okay, that was cool. I gotta watch more of this. But I'm digressing still. I think we've said about everything we can about this episode.
Yep, pretty much.
I think we've pretty much gone around it.
So I guess we're coming down to our rating for it.
Mm-hmm.
Matt?
Oh, me first this time, huh?
Yeah.
Even with the I guess if you can ignore the plot holes, it's about 3. But if you really are noticing it and it really does bug you, then it probably drops down to about 2.
Bill?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's another 3. There's definitely enough issues to keep it from being in the level of a 4, but I don't think they've hurt it enough to drop it below a 3 for me.
Mm-hmm. I'd have to rate it a 2.5 because I rated Rings of Akaten a 3, and as I thought between the two things we've seen of Cross, Rings of Akaten was the superior work because it at least managed to stay up, whereas you poke this one, it felt like a house of cards. So it gets a 2.5.
So far for this part of the season, we've got this as being just barely the weakest rating, followed by Rings, followed by
Cold War.
Yeah. and then of course we've got Bells of St. John on top.
Right. Which by far has been the best work we've seen yet.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, next time we've got Journey into the Center of the TARDIS, which is neither Cross nor Gaddis. It's Stephen Thompson, if I recall.
Should be interesting to look at then. Someone else.
Yes, you're correct, Stephen Thompson.
So somebody new, and then I think we have another Gaddis one,
Yes,
and then we've got
Gaiman and Moffat.
Gaiman, and then the
Oh, Gaiman.
yeah.
No, Gaiman.
So
You-
wait, is it? So it's this one, then it's 3 weeks until Gaiman. Correct?
Are you counting tomorrow as a separate week?
Yes, I am. I'm counting number of episodes. It's like
So we've got the third episode from now is Gaiman.
Okay.
We've got Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, The Crimson Horror, Nightmare in Silver, and then The Name of the Doctor.
Okay. And then we get to see what this was all about.
Yeah.
Now, as I've mentioned, I don't think I've mentioned on the podcast, we've seen kind of the second Doctor theme with Cold War. This one's had a third Doctor theme. Rings of Cotton kind of had a first Doctor theme, or at least a mention. So we are going to be looking for a fourth Doctor reference coming up in Journey to the Center of the TARDIS.
And really, if anything has a reason to have a fourth Doctor reference, it's Journey to the Center of the TARDIS.
Because it really looks like it's taking its cues from Invasion of Time.
Okie doke.
Hostile alien force in the TARDIS,
Mm-hmm.
with the Doctor, basically taking safeguards to prevent them from doing what they want with it.
That, and we already know that they wanted to include a classic console room back last season in the Doctor's life and couldn't afford to. So we might see some. It'd be nice to see you could kind of say both, because they're essentially multiple variations on one version and then another version from the classic series.
I will say this, based on the trailer we've seen, it suddenly looks as if the TARDIS has developed Jeffries tubes, which has me worried.
Jeffries tubes?
Yes, if Star Trek fans would know what Jeffries tubes are.
It's familiar, but I can't
It's
quite
those
place
crawl spaces you always have the engineers and Star Trek stuff scurrying around in.
it. Got you.
The reason they're called Jeffries tubes was the original designer for the Enterprise name was Matt Jeffries. So they were named in a tip of the hat to him. But several series outside of Star Trek have developed Jeffries tubes as a crawl space, and usually they're referred to as Jeffries tubes. It's become a common terminology.
Oh boy.
What?
Jeffries tubes in the TARDIS, this does not sound good.
Yeah, it's not exactly ever been used in Doctor Who before. So
maybe we'll see the restaurant. Or the giant buffet, or whatever they have inside the TARDIS apparently at all times.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with this one. Is it going to, how interesting it's going to be? This has a chance of being either very, very cool or very, very awful. And I'm very interested to see which way it goes.
It also depends upon how well the writer did and how much Moffat added his own input into it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, I will know tomorrow night, and you all will know next week, which I believe is going to be same bat time, same bat channel.
As far as I'm aware.
Yep.
Or ending just in time for my old man to show up too. So.
All right. Tune in next week as we'll go over Journey to the Center of the TARDIS.
Yep.
Good night, everybody.